The United Nations described Gaza this way, quote, the hungriest place on earth, a place where aid is barely trickling in, where the entire population is at risk of famine. Joined now on Zoom from Amman, Jordan by Olga Cherevko. She joined us a few weeks ago. She was in Gaza City then. She hopes to return to Gaza tomorrow. She's the head of communications for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Her organization is directly involved with delivering humanitarian aid to Palestinians in occupied territories. Olga, thanks so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me back.
So, Olga, when we last talked to you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were talking about providing what had been 1 million meals, then it was down to 259,000 meals, I believe, which is way, way short of what's needed in Gaza. And we've heard these dire reports about near starvation. So, what is the situation now?
Well, every time that I've said before that we think the situation cannot get worse than it is now, it's gotten worse. And unfortunately, right now, it's definitely the worst it's been since the beginning of this war. And the state of despair that people are facing and the deprivation that has been taking place for months. And of course, there was almost 80 days of absolutely nothing entering, and then a very limited volume of aid being allowed into Gaza. And that aid is negligible compared to what is actually needed by the people. I mean, they've been left effectively to starve and to be killed.
In the last few days, I think probably everybody listening to the show has read about something called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. What is it and who's behind it, Olga?
Look, we have made our position very clear on any kind of schemes that basically create a distraction for what is happening on the ground. We have voiced our concerns about this foundation in the sense that we cannot be part of any kind of scheme that is putting people at risk, that is making them come to collect supplies at these militarized zones. People shouldn't be risking their lives to come and collect any kind of supplies that they need to survive. And obviously, it is not in line with any humanitarian principles that we abide by and we work within the bounds of.
By the way, my understanding is Israeli military collaborating with an American contractor is doing this. And to just realize it's not just the position of the UN, this guy, Jake Wood, was appointed to be head of this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He resigned, saying, quote, it was not consistent with humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. And that's his quote. And from what I understand, not only have they not been effective in terms of getting food out to starving people, as of this morning, CNN was reporting somewhere in the neighborhood of 31 Palestinians had actually been killed in the environment right around one of these locations, correct?
I mean, this is the same reports that we have seen as well, and it's obviously a very disturbing thing that is happening. And we've spoken to some of the people who have participated in this, in coming to these hubs and collecting these supplies, and they have very honestly expressed their opinion that they do not consider it dignified or humane or in any way helpful.
We countries, particularly Western European countries, and some Jewish groups, including some Jewish groups in the United States, have voiced their upset about the Israeli government's stance on getting supplies into Gaza. I mean, it's like, as you mentioned, that I can't imagine the desperation and despair these people are feeling. Is that mattering? Is there could be there some change in the policy?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, we've certainly been appealing for this for quite some time now, and we do hope that this will bring about a change. Obviously, given the situation now, not much has changed. So we will have to see down the line how things develop. But of course, we continue to engage with everyone who can listen and who will listen to us, and to appeal to those who have influence to make sure that this takes place.
We're talking to Olga Cherevko from the United Nations Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. When we spoke to you a few weeks ago, you responded to this, but it's important, particularly in light of the criticism of this so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The argument the United States and Israel make is that through other sources of distribution of needed food and water, a ton of it is being diverted by Hamas, or at least so goes their argument. Where does the truth lie there, Olga?
Well, it's a very simple answer that we have. So, if you look at the weeks of the ceasefire during which we were actually enabled to do our job, and there was a lot of aid coming in, and we were distributing it to the people in need. So, out of that aid, we were only coordinating and managing about 35% of that aid. So we can speak to that 35% of the aid that was entering, that we were managing and responsible for. And we can say with assurance that there was no large scale diversion taking place, either by Hamas or by their affiliates or whoever it's claimed to be being done by. And also, I want to point out that we were not provided any kind of evidence that to support this claim that this was happening. So, if we were presented any such evidence, obviously we would look into it and see what's going on. But we have the system that we have in place that has been tested over time, that has been tested over different crises in different parts of the world, has a number of mechanisms to mitigate theft, to mitigate diversion, and these include things like monitoring, either pre-distribution or post-distribution or during distribution. Also, we have hotlines for people to call in any types of incidents. We're obviously responsible to our donors who pay for the aid, who provide us with the funding to provide this aid. So, of course, we are responsible to show to them where it goes. So, we have confidence in saying that there's no large scale diversion taking place by whoever is they're claiming to be doing it.
We're talking to Olga Cherevko, and she's calling us from Jordan today, but she's going to be back in Gaza tomorrow. You know, when people are desperate and starving, I can imagine there's a lot of clamor when supply trucks arrive. What is the right way to do this in a situation like the Gazans are facing? You mentioned those people having the reassurances and all that kind of stuff, but how does it work correctly?
Well, especially when there's not enough food, even in the best of circumstances,
Yeah.
as you described to us a few weeks ago.
I mean, there's only one right way to do this, and that is by actually allowing a meaningful lifting of the blockade. And that is by opening the crossings, allowing not only humanitarian aid to be entering, but also commercial supplies, and to actually introduce a sign of normality and life here again, because this drip feeding of the population and just providing a little bit here and a little bit of this, and it doesn't address the problem on the ground. And of course, the kind of when people are trying to take flour from the trucks, I mean, what else are they going to do? They're starving. They're trying to survive, and they're trying to make sure that their family has something to live on. So that is the only reaction I would expect to be happening now, this clamor, because the only way to actually stop that and prevent that is by allowing adequate aid and to meet people's needs.
You know, Olga, I'm sorry, Margie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously, people that are starving and not able to get medical supplies and not being able to get medical care, the Palestinians are in horrific shape. But this is going to be really difficult too for you and for the people that you work with. The frustration and the trauma. How do
The
you,
trauma's got to be
yeah,
traumatizing itself. Yeah.
how do you cope with it?
I mean, of course. I mean, we've been, some of us have been there for since it started, and even before, and so we know what it was before the war began and how it is now, and the various stages that it's gone through. So, of course, obviously, everyone is affected. I mean, if you weren't affected, you wouldn't be a human being. And the frustration, absolutely. Just the fact that we know that we have 18,000 pallets of supplies waiting at various supply points and corridors to just be loaded on the trucks, and they could very easily come if these crossings were open, and these supplies could be allowed to enter. But right now we are extremely constrained in everything, in the way that they're entering, in how much is entering, in what is entering, and how we can collect it and how we can distribute it. So every point of this distribution is basically being prevented,
You know,
and obstructed.
one of the stories you told us last time, several weeks ago, really stayed with both of us. You're talking about going to one of the early learning centers that you had helped establish, and saw some young kids. I think you described a 9-year-old kid who is a remarkable young artist, but what she was drawing was pictures of bombers and other military hardware. And as painful as that is to hear, when you see the images of little kids in these hospitals that are grotesquely understaffed, that don't have medicine, that don't have anesthesia, and these malnourished bodies, what is the state of affairs with medicine, with doctors, with healthcare professionals, with hospitals in Gaza, Olga?
Horrific, horrific. I mean, the healthcare system, as it is by itself, has been decimated. Obviously, there's been hundreds and hundreds of attacks on healthcare. We've documented about 700 attacks since the war began on healthcare in various forms. Just today, I believe there was another report of a dialysis unit being demolished in Jabalia in the North Gaza Governorate. And this, obviously, there's now no longer any functioning hospital remaining in North Gaza. The ones that are still partially functioning, they are struggling, of course, with supplies, especially things like trauma supplies. They are receiving mass casualties every day. They are overwhelmed, understaffed. I mean, people are terrified, obviously, to be working there because these facilities get hit all the time, and they don't know if they might be next if they keep coming to work.
We've read, I know you're involved in the humanitarian side, not the political side. We've read a lot about some Western European countries putting a lot of pressure on Israel to end this killing and, at minimum, establish a ceasefire to allow supplies in. We know that Donald Trump has not been terribly sympathetic to that cause. Is there, to survive, and you used that word last time we spoke, it seems to me most people need hope to survive. Is there any hope amongst Palestinian people with whom you spend time that their kids will survive and prosper, that they'll survive, or is it a total state of hopelessness?
I think hope is always there. Hope will always be there. I hope so. I do think that maybe some people have, in a way, given up because we see, for example, in some areas where they're so tired of being constantly displaced and constantly attacked, and from one place to another, and moving to the place where you think is going to be safer and it's not safer at all, and they've actually just decided they're not going to move anymore. So
Yeah.
either they're going to be killed wherever they are, whatever happens, happens. I do think that hope, hopefully, will never die. I mean, I receive very distressing messages from friends on a daily basis when attacks are particularly severe, and my friends saying goodbye to me
Oh.
in case they don't ever speak to me again, and this is very hard. So But yeah, hope remains.
What
Hope dies
should
last.
people do that are listening to us to try to maybe put pressure on the Israeli government, or what can people do that are hearing what you're saying right now?
Well, I think what's helpful for us is obviously, international support, international community support, and people not growing numb to what they're seeing on the screens, what
Yeah.
they're hearing about, because the people in Gaza are not numb to this. They see it every day and they experience it every day. And it's not. I don't think it hurts any less to lose one child or to lose 15 children, and sometimes all at the same time. So for them, it's the same kind of pain, and of course, it just continues to increase as the days go by. So I think just don't look away and don't stop talking about Gaza.
Olga, we want to thank you and all of your colleagues who do the incredible work you do, and we hope you'll spend some time with us again in the near future. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you.